Welcome to the Work Wonders podcast, where we simplify HR for small business. I'm Angela.
And I'm Susan. Let's dive into today's episode and see what you've been wondering about.
We're very excited to be bringing you our second interview today. In today's episode, we're going to be talking to Susan Bennett from Total Work Health and Safety about her career journey and what she has learnt along the way. We know Susan will have some important tips to share with us about safety in the workplace. Let's face it, this is a topic everyone needs to know about. So let's get started. This is the Work Wonders podcast.
Welcome, Susan. We're delighted to have you here today.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Well, look, we always find people's career journeys really interesting. That's probably one of the reasons we got into HR.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I'm a bit of a sticky beat. So can we start off by asking you to give our listeners an overview of how you got to be doing what you're doing today?
I was an IT manager at a regional council because I'm from past Lithgow, but I do actually work down around Sydney and beyond. And they were taking redundancies because they merged with another council. And so I retired because my kids were little and I wanted to have some time with them before they went to school, and I got very bored, and I got a casual job at the small arms factory in Lithgow doing accounts of all things, which I'm not really that keen on. But I ended up becoming really good friends with a lady who did the health and safety manager's role. She lost her right-hand woman and she asked if I could help along. So I started doing that on a part-time basis and really loved it. I'd actually been the chair of the safety committee at the council for quite a while. And she left and they couldn't find anybody to take over her manager's role. And I said, no thanks, I'm not doing manager's role. I don't know enough about it. So they actually got a guy, came from Melbourne on a regular basis, and he just guided me along how to do things. And they eventually did employ a manager, and I became the safety coordinator. And then after that, the government decided they'd cut defence spending, and I was out of a job with a lot of other contractors as well. And my sister said, oh, why don't you start your own business? So off I went. Absolutely no planning. Just dive straight in. And I've had a fun journey.
So Angela and I are often talking about workplace culture. You know, that's something that ties into everything in the workplace. And I know that you have some ideas around how workplace health and safety actually plays into the culture and vice versa. I mean, they're really closely related. So can you tell us a bit about how you describe that when it works, I guess?
Yes, yeah. Safety is boring. It's just one of those things. And a lot of people think that it's just the boss covering their tail. Oh, it's more paperwork. We don't want to do paperwork. We want to get on with our jobs. And they don't fully understand it, and they don't appreciate that it's not just about themselves as individuals. It's about everybody in the organisation. So just communicating really well with your people is very important. Don't just go and lay rules on them. You've got to do this, this and this. Actually explain it to them and then get them to see the value in it. So when I first started my business, I would do a lot of cold calling, and I would be told, oh, we don't need work health and safety.
Oh, right.
We've got insurance. And my response was always, well, what if one of your workers is killed? What if one of your workers cuts off a hand or something like that? You could potentially lose your business with a fatality, and just your loss of reputation alone is critical to your business. And then as far as people, if they lose a limb, you can't grow that back. And that has an ongoing effect, not just them personally, it's their family. They might not be able to push their little one on the swing anymore. They might not be able to go and play golf like they used to do. And those sort of things people don't really get. And as I said before, communicating with your people is really, really critical. And you don't make it boring, and you try and engage people. You sort of, to be an effective safety person, you really need to be a good communicator. So you can't have someone who's going to talk in a monotone about something. You've got to engage your people. That's really, really critical.
And so can you give us an example of how you might do that, like on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, sure. So generally, I've worked in a lot of factories, and so they generally have, before they start work, is a pre-start meeting. Okay, this is what we're doing today, and usually there's a safety topic in that. So when you're talking about something, you need to make it real to those people. And make sure that you engage the other people who are in that environment as well. So someone might be using a machine and they've used it for however long, they know all the ins and outs of it, but somebody else might come in and need to use that. So you must include them as well. And the thing is, I've found in toolbox talks and plant safety equipment inspections, don't just get the people who use it all the time. Pull someone from perhaps another section and ask them to come in and say, can you see this? And they might pick something that's been there forever, and the other people have just been used to doing it that way or seeing it that way. And someone with a fresh set of eyes can see something. And the other thing with that is they might have something that's happened in their section that doesn't particularly relate to that, but it gives them a think of like, oh, maybe there's something here that I've been doing or I've seen somebody else doing, and I could step in and try and fix it before someone gets hurt.
I really like that. That's a great way to educate people, isn't it? And then spread it further throughout the organisation so people really get that safety message.
And I'd love to hear what you think about all your strategies. What's your top tips about how to get that engagement and how to get people involved?
Treat everybody as an equal. You can't be a safety person and not be able to communicate. It just doesn't work. So include everybody in what you're doing. And as I said before, you get them involved in inspections and things like that. And a good way is if you've got apprentices, because they're pretty wet behind the ears. They don't want to say anything. And one thing I've come across apprentices and even young workers who've just started somewhere in a factory and it's really dangerous and they're just not quite game to say anything, even though their gut feeling is it's not quite right. They don't want to say anything. So very important that you actually include those people in things and just talk to them and ask what they think. Sometimes they'll be a little bit shy. So the idea would be, oh, look, I've just noticed this. I don't use this machine all the time. Are you able to just tell me a little bit about this? And you just get them to open up and talk to you. Key is communication and just keeping on with it as well. Don't just leave them alone. Go back and check on them. And even if you ask their supervisor, oh, look, how's your apprentice going? Is there anything going on there? And then you can potentially go back and have another little chat. But never, ever come down spouting rules and taking the hard line because it will never work.
Yeah, that's understandable, especially in a small business, I imagine. Yeah.
Yes, most definitely, yes.
Susan, what would you think of as the most common issue relating to the safety culture of an organisation that you come across during a site inspection?
Okay, this is so common, it's unbelievable, and I can hardly believe that the business managers don't really get this one. I've been into many places where they're expecting their people to wear their high-vis, their safety boots, things like that, and they complain, oh, they won't do the right thing, I can't get them to do that. And I just take one look and say, have a look at yourself. Are you wearing it? Are you doing what you're telling everybody else to do? And I actually had that situation in a very large printing factory and they were just horrified. And they actually got me to do a toolbox talk. And when I went back, some of those managers still weren't doing the right thing. And I actually called them out in front of the staff in the toolbox talk, which I think really shocked them. But then the next time I went there, it was great.
I was going to say, I think they might have done the right thing.
Yeah, they did.
Do you think by calling them out in front of the staff, you basically gave the staff then permission to point out to them when they're not doing the right thing?
Yeah, how can you expect anybody to do something if you're not willing to do it?
Great point.
Yeah, so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
'Cause, these are basic principles that apply across everything to do with management, really, aren't they, when you think about it?
Definitely.
We hope you're enjoying the guest on our podcast today. Keep listening for a special offer they have for you coming up very soon. And now, it's back to the interview.
So in terms of workplace health and safety, what would you say is the major contributing factor to unsafe workplace in any industry?
It's housekeeping, and that's exactly what it is. Like you clean your house, you clean your workplace. Mm-hmm. So people often get lazy or they just don't see it. I often look at things and I think, what do you like in your own home? If you treat your workspace where you work, and we all know how long you spend at work, it's a major part of your life. So it's really important. Just picking things up, like, someone may have dropped a broom when they were cleaning up some shavings on the floor and they've just left it. And then 10 people will walk over the top of it instead of just grabbing it and putting it up. And hoses over walkways and just interaction between people and bits and pieces. And that is a huge one, and it's a very easy one to solve. But it's something that you have to keep on to because, as I said, people get lazy or they're not that way inclined.
So it's interesting, isn't it, that whole thing of having a fresh set of eyes to see things.
It is. Yes, I was in a factory a little while ago and it blew my mind. I'd never seen anything like it, and how they hadn't done any damage to anybody or even some of their machinery was just quite amazing. And they were just completely oblivious. They were just doing their thing, and I pointed it out and it was like, oh. And I know that they've actually done the right thing now and they've tidied it all up and it's a much better place.
It's about having that awareness.
Exactly, because some people don't understand things. Like I'll go into a place and I've had a situation where I was required to go and meet with some guys. They were big machine operators, rock quarry actually. I don't know anything about rock crushers or dozers, but I do know the principles of work health and safety. So I was told that this guy didn't like women and he thought work health and safety was a waste of time. I got the heads up from the manager, which was very good of him. It's like, how am I going to deal with this one? So basically what I did was I said, look, let's get everybody together, including this person who has this attitude. I'll introduce myself, tell them what I'm doing. Hello, this is me. This is what I'm here for. I don't know how you do your job, but I do know my safety. Bear with me. I'm going to ask you some really dumb questions. Please have a laugh on me and we can get on with it. And I actually didn't have any troubles with that guy. If I'd gone in there saying, you will do this and you will do that, it just wouldn't have worked. And you just can't do it that way.
I wonder, have you ever had to come across an example of, or maybe some strategies of how to get the employees involved as well? You're talking about examples there of managers that might not be, towing the line, doing their part. But what about employees that might be doing that? Some tips for that?
Sure. So I do site inspections. So I've got factories, motor mechanics, transport, disability services as well, stuff like that. So a whole range of places that I work with. A lot of times it's actually quite amazing what they will tell me that they won't tell management. But I basically come in and say, oh, look, I've noticed there's some oil on the floor there. What's going on with that? Oh, that might be something leaking. And it'll be, do you realise that this could happen if you do that? And then another business that I went to, and this was a mechanic, and I'd say to my clients, I'm going to go through everything. So I'll open toolboxes, I'll look in cupboards, I'll check your microwave to see if it's clean. Very detailed, okay? You get the whole box and dice. Yeah, and there's lots and lots of photos. I could do 200 photos, and that's just what I base my inspection on. And this particular one, I opened up the toolbox and it was there was a box about 6 inches wide, about 2 inches high, black with a skull and crossbones. I went, oh, this is interesting. I opened it up and there's some big bunger crackers.
Oh, dear.
In his toolbox. Now, this is a mechanics workshop. Oils, welding, gases, you name it, there. And I said to the guy who was standing there, I said, oh, who owns this? It was the actual manager of the workshop. And when I said, oh, look, mate, what's this here? Because I'm in the country, so, you've got to talk to how the people are. Oh, we take those out the farm and we throw them in the creek and we get the fish. Like, you can't do that. So we had this full-on conversation. And then when I did speak to the owner of the business, he was horrified. He could not believe. He said, that guy's been here for 12 years. He should know better. So that's just one example.
Yeah. We understand that you do safety training. What is the message that you try and impart to your trainees?
Okay, so the thing that a lot of people are afraid of is the laws. It's really complicated. We're in big trouble and all that kind of thing. Safety doesn't have to be frightening, and it can be very simple and very practical. And that's what I try and get across in my message to my people. So I'm approved to do the Safe Work New South Wales 5-day HSR training. And what I do, I don't do Zoom training on that because you just don't get the engagement. So I go to a site and I discuss well before I go, what are the issues that you're actually experiencing at the moment? And I get a lay of the land for what the business does, number one, and then what the issues happen to be. So then what I can do is I can make the practical exercises realistic. So I can gauge when people have got the glazed eyes and all that kind of thing, and they're just not there.
That's right.
So, okay, guys, we're going to go down the factory and let's have a look at this particular item that I've already been alerted to. And we'll have a full-on discussion and we'll come back and we'll perhaps do a risk assessment if that's a section that we've been working on. So they actually understand. And so many times I've had feedback that says, that was really good because we could actually see a way we could solve that issue. And everybody loves the fact that it's their situation. We're looking after their health And then throughout that, I say, well, the law says that as employees, you must follow the rules that are set down by law. It's not just your boss putting that in. And then your boss actually has, the manager of the workplace actually has responsibilities towards you for your safety. And it's quite amazing how you can sometimes see the light coming on when you explain it that way. And it can take a lot of the stress out of having to do the right thing and the threat of the law hanging over your head.
And like you said earlier, treating them like adults, you know. So given all of that, is there one thing that you would say that people should do if they want to do things better?
Stop and take a good look at your workplace, what you do, and think of what could happen and how it could affect your people and your business. And don't be afraid to ask for help.
That's a good one. I think sometimes people just are so frightened of what you might find.
Yes, and some of them are quite surprised at what I find. And I don't just look at the bad things. I've seen some amazing things that people do to keep their people safe. And I always, good on you, well done. Let's make everything else as good as you've done that particular thing.
Thank you so much, Susan. Those are some really great tips. I think there was a lot of great information that you can take away today for your business. To help you further, Susan has a couple of gifts for you. Can you tell us about the offers, Susan?
Certainly. So if you're thinking about getting something done with your safety, I've got a 10-point checklist, and you can just quickly go over that and gives you the 10 basic things that you need. And I've also developed an online work health and safety training program. It's called Working Safe Training. It's for people who may be just starting at work, like so it'd be great for your apprentices. It's simple language. It explains things like the law, the responsibilities of the employer, the employee, the reasons why we do training, and the importance of reporting things, even if you think it's a bit minor, what safe work method statements are, what safe work procedures are, how they're used. So in all, there's 6 modules. It's online. And the beauty of it is in the back end, the manager can actually take a look and see where the deficiencies are for each person, and then you can base further training on that if you need it. So I've got a special offer on that one. It's normally $99 a person, but it's $79 at the moment as a special.
Thanks for that. And thanks for joining us today. It's been great to learn about all this from an expert's viewpoint.
Thank you. I love to share the safety message.
We'll be sure to put all of the links to the offers that Susan has given us today, as well as all of the great tips and information on the show notes on our website, as well as her contact details so you can get in touch with her.
So is there anything that stood out for you that you might take away from today's episode? We talked about thinking about workplace health and safety as part of your culture, being more aware of risks in your workplace, and the fact that everyone is responsible. And of course, the big thing, always the big thing we're talking about, people, is communication. So what are you going to do next? We have lots more exciting guests lined up for future episodes. In fact, every 5th episode will be an interview like this one. If you know someone we should talk to, please get in touch.
Thanks for listening to the Work Wonders podcast. Hit the subscribe button now to never miss an episode. And if you've enjoyed today, we'd love you to tell your friends and leave us a review. What are you wondering about? Let us know over at our website, workwonderspodcast.com.au. See you in the next episode.